The sea is black glass under a rising dawn. A long ship cuts through the waves, its prow carved with a dragon's head, teeth bared toward the storm. Oars groan, sails snap, and cold salt spray bites the faces of men who may never see another sunrise. But their voices rise, not in fear, but in song. For a Viking does not beg for life. He dares death to come and test him. Was this madness? Or did they know a secret about death that we've forgotten? Stay with this story, because what they believed could change the way you live today. The word Viking conjures images of horned helmets, endless raids, and rivers of blood. But let's set one record straight. Those horns? Pure invention. Blame 19th century opera costumes, not archaeology. In truth, the Viking world was as ordinary as it was brutal. Most of these men and women were not pillaging every coastline they could find. They were farmers, fishermen, traders, mothers, fathers, children. A Viking morning might begin with salted herring or porridge thickened with barley. Bread was black, dense, and sometimes flavored with birch bark when grain was scarce. Mead, honey wine, was for feasts, not breakfast. Work filled their days. Men split their time between the farm and the sea, while women oversaw households, weaving sails that held entire fates together. Evenings were spent around a fire, listening to sagas, stories that preserved heroes and ancestors long after their bones had turned to dust. And here's something surprising. Despite their reputation for savagery, Vikings were fastidious about grooming. Archaeologists have uncovered combs, tweezers, and even ear spoons buried with them. They bathed once a week, far more than many Europeans of the same era. Imagine facing a raid knowing you smelled of pine soap while your enemies hadn't bathed in a year. That perhaps is its own kind of psychological warfare. But behind this ordinary life loomed one constant truth. Life was short, death inevitable, and no one could escape the weaving of the Norns, the three sisters of fate. Death was not hidden in the Viking age. It was everywhere. A harsh winter could starve a village. A slip on icy stone could break a bone. An infection might finish the job. A raid might bring wealth, or an axe in the back. Unlike today, where death is tucked away in sterile hospitals and polite silence, the Vikings lived with death as a companion. And they had a way of making peace with it, not by ignoring it, but by transforming it into destiny. For the Viking warrior, there was no greater honor than to die with weapon in hand, not quietly in bed, but with axe swinging, shield splintering, breath steaming in the cold air of battle. Those who died bravely were said to be chosen by the Valkyries, fierce maidens of Odin, who carried them to Valhalla, the great hall of the slain. There, amid endless feasting, they would fight and fall each day, rise again at dusk, and prepare for Ragnarok, the final battle at the end of time. Here is one major historical fact. The Edda, Icelandic poems written centuries later, describe Valhalla with 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors to march through at once. Do the math, and you realize this was an army of over 400,000 men. For the Vikings, eternity was not rest, but readiness. Now here's where it gets interesting. Historians still debate whether all Vikings truly believed in Valhalla. Some argue it was reserved for the elite warrior class, while common farmers and fishermen imagined humbler afterlives in places like hell. Not the Christian hell, but a shadowy underworld ruled by the goddess Hel. And not all afterlives were equal. Sailors feared drowning most of all. To die swallowed by the sea meant no sword in hand, no glorious battle cry, and therefore no place in Valhalla. Some sagas hint at alternative fates for such men, but uncertainty lingers like fog over the fjords. one obscure cultural detail stands out. Viking funeral ships were sometimes set ablaze and pushed into the sea, but more often, burials were humbler. A farmer might be laid in a mound with tools, seeds, or livestock figurines, the items he would need for a next life. The cinematic burning ship is iconic, yes, but rare. Reality, as always, is more practical. So why did Vikings face death without fear? Because they believed death was not negotiable. Fate was already spun. The Norns had woven your life's thread long before you took your first breath. In this, they echo the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." The Viking, like the Stoic, saw fear as wasted energy. If the time of your death was fixed, then courage was not about avoiding death. It was about meeting it well. Now think about today. We may not wield axes, but we do battle with smaller fears. The fear of failure, of rejection, of stepping into the unknown. These fears, like death, are inevitable. And when we let them control us, we die in pieces long before our body fails. The Viking mindset challenges us. If you cannot escape death or fear, then why run? Better to fight, better to face it head on. Better to live in such a way that your name is worth remembering. Picture this. A young Viking, scarcely 20 winters, falls in battle. His blood soaks the frozen earth, his last breath a shout to Odin. His body rots, but his name, carried by sagas, by the lips of poets, by the memory of kin, outlives him by centuries. This is the secret. Immortality is not about escaping death. It is about living so fiercely that others carry your story when you cannot. The twist is simple, yet profound. The Viking did not fear death because he had already ensured that death could not silence him. And so the life lesson emerges. Courage is not measured in years lived, but in how you use them. To live without fear is not to live forever. It is to live fully. The Vikings teach us this. Death is inevitable, but how you meet it decides how long you are remembered. Your saga is not written in distant halls of Asgard. It is written here, now, in every act of courage, every word of truth, every step into the unknown. So the next time fear whispers of failure, of rejection, of the end itself, remember the Viking. Grip your metaphorical axe. Stand firm. Let fear come. And when it does, meet it with a steady gaze, because the Norns have already woven your end. What matters is how you live before the thread is cut. The Viking lived and died with the sword. But for most of history, survival meant something far less glamorous: farming, fasting, and fighting hunger. Join us next time as we step into the mud and smoke of medieval village life.